What's up, YouTube? How's it going? So, Nintendo is one of the most beloved entertainment companies on the planet. They're the ones who did bring video games back from oblivion after the video game crash, after ET and everything. Nevertheless, they're also the embodiment of fuck around and see what happens. If you know anything about Nintendo or any company that is child focused, like family focused, like Disney, you do not screw around with them, or they will come at you with a nuclear bomb ready to arm. Now, to set up this story, Nintendo isn't exactly keen to allow anyone to use their IPs. Again, it is their IP, they're free to do that, but even if you have passion projects, which you just do for the sake of, showcasing your love for their franchises, for example, Pokemon Uranium was a fan project completely free, and Nintendo shut this down. And you can still download this game through other third party, but it carries a great degree of risk because it's not from the official people who made this fan project. Again, it was entirely free, a fully fleshed out game. And same thing for a project AM2R, which is another Metroid 2 remake, which was to honor Samus's birthday, which was again delivered for free. I actually played this one. It was really good, but was shut down by Nintendo. Now the argument could be made they shut this down because they were working on their own remake for the 3DS, Metroid 2 Samus Returns, which is an exceptional remake, but nevertheless, it's kind of a salty look. And recently, Nintendo has been going after content creators who make Legend of Zelda or any type of, community-driven projects. Like I did this video on Point Crow. He has this video up where he goes into detail of how Nintendo was copyright striking his content. Basically, his channel is on life support because Nintendo basically issued two copyright strikes. Not sure if this is resolved yet, but yeah. So Nintendo isn't exactly, you know, they're not really good people when it comes to legal issues. So recently, they finally released the person who was in charge of one of the biggest Nintendo emulator projects of all time. Now, this is Team-Xecuter, and basically they were widely known for creating hacks in order to bypass digital restrictions for Nintendo consoles. The group has been chased by Nintendo for years, but today their operation has become the central of criminal case prosecuted by the U.S. government. In fact, if you go to the site, it's shut down and seized by the U.S. government. The U.S. Justice just announced that two members of Team-Xecuter were arrested recently: Max Laurin, a 48-year-old French national, and 51-year-old Gary Bowser. Now, it's not a joke, that is his real name, from Canada, are in custody and charged with conspiracy. Now, this was back in 2020. And since then, Gary Bowser has been released. The three indicated members are just a minority of the total group. According to the U.S. authorities, there are more than a dozen Team-Xecuter members scattered around the world. These members helped code and create Nintendo hacks, but they also suspected of being involved in the production of sales of these devices. That's the big no-no here. They were selling the devices. Now, if you give it out for free, I'm not a lawyer. Don't take my word on it, but when you give it away for free, it's a different story, because I'm certain all of us have seen people emulate Nintendo games. Like, basically, people emulate Super Mario 64 in order to speed run the game, because getting a Nintendo 64, modding it for, HTML so you can actually play the game on stream, all that stuff, even then it's still in a legal dark zone because you're modifying the console, and Nintendo also states you can't do that. So there's a lot of just legal loopholes. So for the most part, Nintendo allows this as long as you're not selling or they profiting from these services, because if they wanted to, they would go after everyone who's participating in these types of things. The indictment portrays Team-Xecuter as a criminal enterprise and notes that its members did their best to evade the law enforcement by using a variety of brands, websites, and distribution channels. They would basically sell these things at thrift stores and all that. These defendants were allegedly leaders of a notorious international criminal group that reaped illegal profits for years by pirating video game technology of U.S. companies, said Attorney General, yada yada yada. These arrests show that the department will hold accountable hackers who seek to commandeer and exploit the intellectual property of American companies for financial gain, no matter where they might be located. Again, they were selling these things, unlike Pokemon Uranium and another Metroid Prime 2 remake. Within still, this is within Nintendo's right to shut down these projects because, again, it's Metroid. Nintendo owns the copyright to Metroid, and same thing for Pokemon. They own the right to the Pokemon franchise when it comes to gaming. So, yeah, according to legal paperwork, Bowser was responsible for developing circumvention devices. He also allegedly operates several related websites, including MaxConsole.com, which we just saw was taken down by the U.S. government, where he posted reviews, news posts under his nickname Gary OPA. Max Console is still online today. It was online back in 2020, but no longer. The overwhelming demand and use for these enterprise devices was to play pirated video games. To support its illegal activity, Team-Xecuter allegedly helped create and support online libraries of pirated video games for its customers, and several of the enterprise's devices came preloaded with numerous pirated games. Now, if you know, if this sounds familiar, it's kind of what Soldier Boy was doing. There's also a person who owned something called Gears TV who did similar things. I forgot what his name was, but basically he would flaunt around how he was giving people access to television shows illegally, and it's good. They're gonna come. They're gonna come after you. The 3 defendants are charged with 11 felony counts, including conspiracy to complete wire fraud, conspiracy to circumvent technological measures, and to traffic in circumvention devices, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Yeah, because when you're selling illegal digital devices and digital items, you're going to have to launder that money in some way. Defendant Bowser resided in the Dominican Republic when he was arrested in September, and since then has been deported to the United States. Lauren is in the custody of Canada, providing extradition rights. So this is what's happening right now. This comes from Torrent Freak. Last year, we already read this. He had a 40-month prison sentence, and he pleaded guilty to Nintendo hacking group Team-Xecuter, and had now served his time in due part to good behavior. Bowser got out on release from federal prison. He is now processed and sent to preparing to return in Canada. In fall 2020, the U.S. government indicated 3 members of the infamous Team-Xecuter groups, the masterminds behind various Nintendo hacks. The group allegedly made millions of dollars through its operations, which effectively shut down shortly after the criminal proceedings. The authorities arrested Canadian Gary Bowser in the Dominican Republic. We read that. He served his 40 minutes prison sentence for a salesperson. So this guy wasn't part of the main head of the operation. He was just a salesperson. Basically, he was just there to sell the product. As purported salesperson of Team-Xecuter, Bowser wasn't a leading figure in the operation. Most people knew him as Gary OPA, the operator of Max Console, a website that regularly reviewed Team-Xecuter or hardware and other hacking tools. Financially, Bowser's role was rather limited. From all the millions of dollars in revenue that were generated by Team-Xecuter, Bowser was paid only $500 to $1,000 a month. His attorney previously said he didn't deny involvement. However, it doesn't matter how much you got paid. What matters is you were involved. But it just gets a lot worse. Following the arrest, Bowser was deported to the United States, where he pleaded guilty. Last February, Bowser was sentenced to 40 months in prison for his role in the criminal enterprise. The sentence is significant, but lower than 5-year prison term the government had requested. During sentencing, Judge Lansky said that it was important to send a message, but agreed that reduction was warranted as Bowser played the smallest role of the 3 defendants. There's the thing. This is all about sending a message, and you're going to see what I mean by that. Bowser was later incarcerated at the Federal Detention Center, CTEC, in Seattle. A few weeks ago, his attorney put in a request for early release, citing times credits earned by the client to date. That request was denied as earlier this month, as the Bureau of Prisons had pushed Bowser's release date forward. In a recent interview with Nick Moss, Bowser explained that he was released from federal prison on March 28th. He is currently in the processing at the Northwest Detention Center in Tamaulipas, Washington, to prepare his return to Canada. Most of the paperwork has arranged, and Bowser expects to travel to Canada in roughly a week with his newly issued passport in his pocket. Initially, the 50-year-old feared that he would be left stranded at the border, but ICE agreed to send him to Toronto instead. He's 50 years old. Just put that into the back of your mind. Because of my medical condition, my age, and the fact that I was born in Canada and have a family back in Toronto, ICE is working to get me back directly into Toronto. Bowser says adding to the method of transportation remains unclear. He has a family? I'm going to assume that his main family, not like a wife and kids, but I don't know. We'll see. Now, this is what we're talking about. $10 million in damages, and he paid only $175 so far. Remember, this is a 50-year-old man. For the time being, the Northwest Detention Center already offers much more freedom. Bowser is no longer restricted to a cell, but stays in dorms, but more flexibility, access to decent coffee, and better food options than at the federal prison. But his life will work like a Canada remains uncertain. However, in federal prison, Bowser has shown that he doesn't shy away from putting in work and helping other people in need. Aside from his prison job, he spent several 90 hours on suicide watch. Ooh, I hope YouTube doesn't come after me. It's literally written in the article. The prison job brought him some meager income. A large part of went to pay for the outstanding restitution he has paid, which is 14.5 million in total. Thus far, less than 200 has been paid. Dear freaking Christ almighty. Look, prisons use their prisoners as slave labor. That's just a fact. If you've ever seen Orange Is the New Black, that's basically what it is. They are paid meager wages in order to work for high-end companies to make their clothing and other options. I've been making a payment of $25 per month, which has been taken from my income because I had a job in federal prison, so I paid $175, Bowser tells Nick Moses. If it manages to find a stable source of income in Canada, Nintendo will get a chunk of that as well. As part of a constant judgment, he agreed to pay $10 million to Nintendo, which is the main restitution priority. Dude, people can work their entire lifetime, whatever, making that much. Heck, making even a tenth, $1 million. Most people do not even work their entire lives to make that much money. Dear Christ. And Nintendo is a multi-billion-dollar company. They don't need this money. This is all about sending a message, like it was stated earlier, to make sure that anyone who uses or tries something like this, Nintendo will come after you, and they'll come after you hard. And they don't care if you're a 50-year-old man at the tail end of your life. You're paying back every cent that you owe them. The agreement with them is the maximum they can take 25 to 30%. Imagine, like, I don't know how Canada works in terms of taxes, but in the US, at least in New York, you pay an average of 40% of your income in taxes. That's half your income if you lived in New York. But then again, he also lives in Canada, which means he has to pay back, since this was settled in US court, I assume he has to pay back in US currency, which means Canadian currency was worth less than US currency, so again, that's how I'm reading this, of your gross monthly income. I have up to 6 months before I have to start making payments. 6 months. You have to find a job, which, again, you're a criminal, and not just any criminal. You're a massive criminal. Who's going to hire you? At the same time, like, you have to pay back all this money. So you buying a house, having a stable income, all that stuff, it's gone. Like, everything is gone. Your life is over. At this rate, it's unlikely that Nintendo will ever see the full amount. It's not about the full amount. It's about to show people who try to replicate Team-Xecuter's system that if you do this, we will come. Like, this is literally not even the guy who is responsible. He's not even up there with any of the top members. He's literally on the lower end of the totem pole. Like, I would even say he's at the lowest point. You got paid like $500 to $1,000 for something that was netting hundreds of thousands of dollars. Or put differently, Bowser will carry out the financial consequences of his Team-Xecuter involvement for the rest of his life. Look, I'm not trying to sugarcoat this or say like, hey, he shouldn't be punished for this stuff. You did do something illegal. You always have to ask yourself, if you're doing something wrong, if it's worth the consequences of what you're going to do. If you steal something, you better be hoping that it's worth it if you get caught. Like, everyone likes to think, oh, I'll never get caught, or I'll just reap the benefits, while thinking, yeah, but if you do get caught, this will happen. And this is what Nintendo wants you to know that, hey, if you do this, your life is over. Like, they will come after you. Doesn't matter how old you are, what position you're in, where you are in the world. They will come, they will knock down your door, and they will destroy every fabric of your life. Look, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I assume that there is a system where Nintendo can drop it. Like, just say, hey, we're not going to get the money back. He's learned his lesson. And maybe they can do that. Like, when this guy is like, I don't know, 2-3 years later, or like, I would say like even a year later. But then again, who's to say what would go down in the future, or Nintendo could ever forget about this guy? Remember, uh what happened with Point Crow. Point Crow is literally is a million YouTuber, makes predominantly Nintendo content, and literally he hasn't heard back from them at all. And Nintendo has very archaic types of communication systems, so even if they were to like still take notice to this guy, I don't know. And again, it just serves as such a big example of what not to do, of what to say. Like, hey, let's pirate the next what's the big Nintendo the next Nintendo game is Tears of the Kingdom for Legend of Zelda. Anyone who pirates that game, anyone who tries to get a free emulator of that game, this will be hovering over your head. It's same thing of what happened with Point Crow. Like right now, a lot of people, including myself, are questioning ever to make Nintendo content ever again. And the reason we're doing that is because at any time Nintendo could come in and say copyright strike, and it's within their rights to do so. It doesn't matter if you have fair use; it's still their IP. So it's a real big problem. And I don't know. I just feel like the punishment doesn't fit the crime, all things considered. Especially like if you've watched CoffeeZilla's videos, you've seen that people who have stolen millions upon millions of dollars from innocent people using crypto scams, rug pulls, NFT scams, they get a slap on the wrist. They literally just pay a fine, or they like go off scot free. Just look at all the crap that Logan Paul has done, or like that guy Ty Lopez, or a lot of these fake gurus have done. Hey, look at those mega churches and all the things they've done to innocent people. They literally get slaps in the wrist. But this guy, he emulated and sold the pirated Nintendo content. $14 million fine. Uh, I don't know. I just feel like the crime doesn't justify that horrible thing. I really hope that Nintendo down the line decides, you know what, he's learned his lesson and just decides to drop it. But that's just my thing. I do think that that's just such a severe, it's just such a severe overreaction to everything. But I'm not a lawyer. We'll see. Maybe I'm just being too sympathetic. I don't know this guy on a personal level. It just seems like a lot of money for something that doesn't seem like it should be. Either way, tell me what you think in the comments below. Remember, don't fuck around with Nintendo or they'll come after you.